The Undertaker versus Mankind, one of the most memorable matches of all time, but not actually a great match. It's more of a spectacle, which leads me to rank it at number 63, right in front of Kurt Angle versus Shane McMahon and TLC 1. Excluding Hogan slamming Andre, Taker throwing Mick Foley off the cell is the most memorable and replayed moment in the history of the WWE, and just for that alone deserves a spot on this list. The match, even more so than the first, set the bar for what fans could expect from cell matches, and thankfully, this cell match has not been topped, because the only way it could be topped is if someone actually died in the match, and no one wants to see that.
See, I totally agree with that.
I do too, and I want to say thank you very much, Dylan.
Yeah, so what you've just heard is us deliberating with our patrons and our listeners about where in the world to rank the Hell in the Cell match between Mankind and The Undertaker.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Dylan, again, really thoughtful and really well put, I think. This is our first ever sort of mini-sode, right? We're going to call this episode 66 and a half. So, it's Landon, Paul, and Spenser. We're all here,
yes,
and we're all trying to figure out where in the world we are going to put Mankind, Undertaker, King of the Ring 1998. And Dylan starts us off in a really great way, right? Saying that because of the spectacle that it is, it deserves a spot on the list. But even though he said that, he ranked it right towards the bottom at number 63.
And I appreciate that because I feel like there is a vocal part of this community that, while may agree after some convincing that it does have a spot, it earns a space, but gosh, how high can it go when you consider some of the other things that we talk about on this show as far as in-ring work and the technical ability?
Yeah, let me tell you, Kick Clouds on Twitter said, trying to rank this week's match is like trying to rank Master of Puppets on a list of classic rock albums.
It is.
Good luck.
What a fantastic comparison.
That's a really good... yeah.
Because that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I want us to sort of keep that in mind, because what we're going to do over the next few minutes is play you some feedback that we've gotten from our different listeners, from our patrons, about where this match is supposed to rank, and I'm really, really excited to see how different everyone is sort of on the spectrum, and we'll hear from some others, hopefully here at the end, that will help us finally solidify a spot for this match.
And that's another reason why I wanted to do this, is to showcase the difficulty of what we do on this show. And that's not to, pat ourselves on the back. It's like, we do hard shit. But it's just to say that it takes a village, and we want to make sure as many opinions are expressed as possible in our show. And so, especially with a match that's so sort of all over the place, controversial about where people would book it, let's listen. Let's listen.
Well, before we do that, you have to keep in mind that this match goes two ways.
It does.
Do you rank?
It's like a two-parter.
Do you rank the spectacle, or do you rank the in-ring action?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the in-ring action, it's a little sloppy. That's because one of the gentlemen is so concussed he shouldn't be there, but he still manages to pull off like some pretty good stuff. And they tell a compelling story after the fact, but you can't separate the spectacle from the match. You have to take them as one piece of media.
And I think that's our responsibility, is to accept it as a whole and not just what people see as, the crazy moment at the beginning. We have other matches on this list.
Yeah, because I don't want to rank the two bumps.
Right.
I want to rank the entire thing.
And we have other matches on the list where they have crazy, huge moments like that, but maybe they don't rank as high because of other things that happen in the match. And so we have to accept it as a whole.
I agree with that.
Yeah, what would have been the easiest thing for us to do is for this match to have been episode 1, so that it had only one spot to go, right? And that would have been the easy way out, but here we are 66 episodes later, and we've got some of the greatest wrestling we've ever seen on this list so far, and we were going to have moments like this. We were going to run into matches that really drew the line, and so I'm excited to see where our listeners stand on that line. So let's get into it. I think we have some actual sound clips from people, which is fantastic. Thank you so much to everyone that sent some of that stuff in. And I think we want to start with, deservedly so, the last patron standing trivia champion from our first season of Last Patron Standing, and that is Daniel. So, Daniel, let us know what you think.
The Undertaker versus Mankind, King of the Ring, 1998. What is there to say about this match that hasn't already been said 1,000 times by people way more qualified than me to talk about it? A match that, for better or for worse, influenced an entire generation of wrestlers after this to take more and more death-defying stunts to their own detriment. If we're grading it solely based on match quality, not a great match in the ring, bell to bell, but grading things as an entire match in its own, we have Hogan versus Rock from WrestleMania 18, because it's not a great match in the ring, but the situation and the aura and the history around it makes it a bigger match, which is why, in my view, it ranks 50 directly underneath Hogan Rock, because I think Hogan Rock is slightly better.
Well, Hogan Rock featured sushi in the build, so we had to factor that in. No, seriously, no. I am on task here to almost completely, 99.9% agree with everything he just said.
It makes a compelling argument.
It really does.
I would certainly say so. And what is so interesting is that Rock Hogan is, to me...
Well, if you mute the crowd, the match is terrible. Well, if you get rid of the 2 bumps, what is this match?
Right. It's the perfect comparison. It really, really is, because match quality by itself, Rock Hogan, shit. Not really good, right? Hulk Hogan, not a good wrestler. Let me just I'm so sorry to anyone I've ever offended in my life.
I've never heard that before.
But point is that you remember Rock Hogan for the moment.
Yes.
And you remember this match for the moment. Man, that's a really good start.
I mean, if nothing else, it is the most memorable wrestling match of all time.
Another thing that Daniel said that I really appreciate, and it sort of touches back on what we discussed during our main episode for this match, and that's, it inspired a generation to do things that they probably should never be inspired to do.
I mean, New Jack took as big of dives as Mick takes in this match, for years after that, just because, fuck it, let's go higher.
But should he?
No.
And
he
that's
probably would still be alive if he didn't do stuff
that's
like
a
that.
question. Now, I don't know how that necessarily helps us as far as where we would rank this.
Well, I'm going to say something. When we were first looking at this, I didn't think about this match, but after he's talked me around the same rank, a match I'm looking at and going, is it really a good match, or is there really cool spots in it? And that's Mike Awesome and Masato Tanaka. That match has some of the most spectacular power bombs and chair shots of all time.
It's a fantastic match.
But at the end of the day, do we talk about it because it's a great match? We talk about it because, holy shit, look at that power bomb, or holy shit,
it's about
look at those chair shots.
I'm glad you said that, because what that match is about is what competitors are willing to do to tell a compelling story.
They took years off their lives.
For context, that's number 47 on our list currently.
Yeah, it's slightly higher. I'm not saying I would go higher. I'm just saying that now I'm starting to look at matches that are near where Rock and Hogan are and go, some of these matches are not that great, but have some kind of spectacular moment or moments in them that are so memorable that people will look past. Maybe the match isn't the best match, but holy shit, remember when this happened?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of got me rethinking a few different matches on here.
Well, and I want to clarify, we don't rank matches because there's an oh my god moment.
Right, and that was one of the biggest things that we talked about when we started the show, was we didn't want to make a list of the 100 biggest OMG moments in wrestling history or in WWE history or whatever, because we wanted something with more depth than that. We wanted to open our horizons and open our listeners' horizons to some of the greatest wrestling, because that's what we love, is wrestling, right? Some of the greatest wrestling we've ever seen. And so some of these moments and matches on our list, like Rock Hogan, like Hell in a Cell, are oh my god moments. But there are also moments that transcend time in the wrestling business.
And they're moments that are important to telling a story. And that's something what we've grown to learn. What I have learned over the course of this show is that pro wrestling isn't just wrestling that happens between the ropes.
Yeah, it's
it's
not.
psychology.
It's
It's
exactly.
the story they're trying to tell, and it's the links that the two people are willing to go to tell that story.
And I will say, if nothing else, this match proves that Mick is a fucking genius when it comes to psychology. Because
100%.
being double concussed with a separated shoulder, he still manages to tell a compelling story.
The fact that he tried to kick out for the final 3 count.
Yeah, it's just to say that, like, I'm not dead.
Absolutely incredible.
Because
But
when we talk about it, like, he does, there's a moment where the leg goes. Like, he still is trying to prove that even though his body is failing him, he still has the heart to keep fighting. It's like, please stay down.
yeah.
No, I want to keep fighting. No, stay down, Mick.
Daniel, thanks so much for that. Really incredibly well put. But I want to switch gears now to you. You know, Daniel was our champion for Last Patron Standing Season 1, but we have a new challenger in Season 2, and that's Joey. So I'd love to hear what Joey has to say about Hell in a Cell.
Player 2 has entered the game.
Mankind versus The Undertaker at Hell in a Cell is not only a legendary match synonymous with both men's careers, but also the sport of professional wrestling in general. Some shots of Mick Foley in this match will live on until the end of all time. You'd be hard-pressed to find a single wrestling fan who's not seen this and has opinions on this. In terms of ranking, it's a little more of a spectacle than a match itself. I could easily put it above Foley and Edge, have a little bit of a harder time putting it above Liger Muta, so I'd slot it in right at number 40. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Number 40.
Wow. Well, first of all, that's our highest, obviously, one yet. But he
Yeah.
said something that is absolutely true, and that this match is synonymous with pro wrestling.
It really is. I mean, how many times have we seen a video package for the WWE, and this is like the first or the last image you see?
100%. 100%.
How could it not be? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
Like-
something that they'll never go back to and try and replicate, at least on the scale on which it happens. So, milk it. Use
Well, I
it.
mean, someone has been either thrown off or jumped off the top of the cell 3 times.
Well, and the thing is, we talked
it.
about this a little bit in our main episode about this match, and that is not only is the visual highlight what you see on repeat, but JR's commentary from that call, from that moment, has been so mainstream with social media. Like, you can't go a week on Twitter without seeing a video of JR, calling someone falling in the grocery store, they're broken in half.
Okay,
You
there is a collection of vines, which is just things happening that has Randy Orton RKOing somebody, but the audio is always, no, don't go, oh, God almighty, they've killed it.
It is.
Yeah,
it
every
absolutely
time.
is. So, huge point from Joey is that this, like, the importance of this match in terms of wrestling as a whole on its landscape, really hard to overlook. So, I don't know, man. 40 feels high, but I can't argue with that.
So far we've gotten 40 and 50.
Yeah, we've gotten 40, 50, and 63.
Sorry,
So,
I read that and I forgot.
No, it's okay. So let's see where Ash falls, right? Runner-up from Last Patron Standing, Season 1, our runner-up. Let's see where he falls with King of the Ring.
So thoughts on the Undertaker versus Mankind match from King of the Ring 1998. I feel, as the matches in general, it's a very good match. Obviously, it's remembered for certain 2 spots from the match itself. After that, it does pick up quite a bit. In standing, is it both Taker's and Mankind's best matches in their careers? I'll say not, as Taker has had better matches with the likes of Shawn Michaels and Edge, and same with Foley. He's had better matches with Edge and also Michaels. I would have to say it doesn't reach as high as the first Hell in a Cell match between Taker and Shawn. I would rank it around the 50 mark, roughly around the halfway point.
Yeah, Ash, thanks again for sending that in. Something that you said that resonates with me is one that actually we've gotten from a lot of different listeners over the last week or so, and that's that this is not the best Hell in a Cell match
No.
ever. and that.
But it's the most important one.
Well, I think that's probably true, but there's a lot of love for Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Hell in a Cell.
Because it's a damn good match,
It's
we saw.
really good. I mean, that's why we covered it, right?
Yeah.
But so that sort of seems to be the ceiling for a lot of people, is that they wouldn't want to rank it over that Hell in a Cell match, and I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I don't want to go over it either, and I don't think that Mick or Taker would want to go over it either. I think they probably would still say, "Oh, that's a better match," but ours had more spectacle. Ours is the one that everyone still talks about to this day.
And that match currently, just for context again, is 30 on our list right now. So, gosh, Ash, really good point. It's not the best match of either of these men's careers, but it is perhaps the most memorable.
I think so. And my biggest takeaway from all of this is that we seriously need to review the Mankind versus Shawn Michaels Mind Games match.
Yeah, I agree. I think
it's my biggest
it would
takeaway
really
from all
help
this.
us give us a little bit more context here. But man,
for sure.
And so everyone so far has really been in sort of like 40 or below.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we reached out to some peers of ours, some friends over at the Then Now Whatever podcast, and we had the pleasure of being on their show to do the last tape standing. And I reached out to Dunk, and I was like, Dunk, we need help. This is the toughest thing we've ever had to do. So they were gracious enough to lend us their voice and their opinions. So this is their clip that they sent us.
Hi guys, Duncan from Then Now Whatever here. The obvious ceiling for this match is the original Hell in a Cell match at number 30. As much as Mankind and Undertaker's natural chemistry came through, it just can't match the original in terms of getting the concept over. The other handy comparison point you've got is Cactus Jack vs Triple H at number 39. When I showed Kyle the list, his immediate thoughts were that this match was better than the Cell match. I think I agree. But I still feel that the Hell in a Cell has much more historical significance. Ultimately, it's a case of how big a factor you think history should play. If you don't think the substance of the match carries enough weight, 40 looks like a good enough spot. If the iconic status of its top spot warrants more attention, you could probably go as high as 36. Thanks for letting us have our say. If you've still got Hell in a Cell on the brain, come check out our latest edition of the Tape Trader Diaries. We look at Armageddon 2000, headlined by the first ever 6-man Hell in a Cell. Keep up the good work, now catch you down the road.
Duncan, our guy.
What a fantastic analysis. I mean,
Yeah.
he's absolutely right. If you're just looking at it as far as like what the match gives you, 40 makes a lot of sense. It's a number that we've heard time and time again. But then if you're going to take the spectacle into account, maybe 36 is right.
Well, I think it's interesting. We've had 2 people say 40, 2 people have said 50, but he's the only one that's really gone as high as, say, 36.
I put it at 5 on the show, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but that's before
Oh, yeah.
we dissect it. You're like, maybe not.
Well, I definitely want to say go check out Then Now Whatever's episode on Armageddon 2000. It's fantastic. It's a ton of fun. So definitely take a look at that. And Duncan, again, thanks so much for sending that in. It was super, super helpful. But what you said it really sticks out, and that is how much does history play a part in this match and our ranking of it. And I think there's no better direction to go in to sort of help us figure that out than to maybe hear from those men that were involved in the match itself.
It's everlasting. It's in our minds forever. And it's like any other great event in wrestling or mainstream sports. It's that clay that defined the game.
I couldn't ask for a better human being to do that with than Mick. These are things that, like I said, that I haven't really talked about. There's probably only a handful of people that I would, open myself up like that to, he being one of them. It's really special to be considered such an iconic match and one that people really, have all these really fond memories of. That just lets us know we did something right.
It was the reactions to the unexpected, and I think that element of surprise, it embeds it in people's minds so that anyone who was there in the venue or watching live when it happened will never forget that moment. This moment or series of moments has left this indelible imprint on people's memories. We're somehow able to create an image in people's minds that lives on and will outlive me and The Undertaker both.
You know what? Screw it. Number 1.
It will outlive us both.
Yeah.
From Mick Foley. I I don't know what more you can add to that, right?
Not much.
Taker says Foley was perfect for this moment and that it's an iconic moment. JR, of course, famously says it's the play that defines the game, you know. And so that leads it to us. A huge shout out and thank you again to everyone, all of our listeners and patrons and peers that sent in some consulting and some feedback and some help for us. We appreciate you helping us rank this match very, very much. But ultimately, it comes down to the three of us on our show. And I have to say, for me, this was super helpful. You know, we were so all over the place at the end of episode 66, and that's why we needed this 66 and a half, right? I'm not going to say that I feel so super solid about it one single number now, but I do feel like I've got a range in my head, and that's a lot better. So how are you guys feeling right now as we begin to rank it?
I have a very specific number in mind, and I am going to end up going with number 40.
Yeah, I'm so extremely appreciative to everyone who reached out to us on Twitter, on Patreon, and via email about their thoughts on this match, because it's why we do what we do, is to have these conversations and to sort of build this community. And what I love about what we've been able to do is that it's such a positive community. Like, everyone who has come together and is on our Discord chat and is on our Patreon page, they're coming together like we're one big happy family, and that's kind of rare to find in the internet wrestling community.
Yes,
so I appreciate every single one of you listening to this right now.
Yeah, just a quick add-on to that. We do Discord chats for all pay-per-views, or we try to, as many as we can, AEW, WWE pay-per-views, whatever. And those are just a ton of fun to sort of watch along with our patrons and some of our listeners, right? And sort of getting their live in the moment feedback in the middle of something happening on a pay-per-view. It feels very different than just like scrolling through our Twitter feeds, right? Like it's
more fun.
It's a fun conversation that we have, and oftentimes, you know, it's about the wrestling going on in the ring at the moment, and sometimes it's about colored beer. You know, like it really just depends on the moment. But it's been a really fun community that we built there, and so I'm grateful for that.
And yeah, access to our Discord page. You can access it on our our lowest entry tier on Patreon.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So as you can tell, we sort of are pushing for engagement with our listeners. We want to hear from you guys. We know that the three of us in this room, and I think that Daniel put it best earlier when he said there are people much more qualified to do what we're doing, right? And so we know that about ourselves. Like, we are doing our best, and we are having a hell of a good time doing it, but we know the more opinions, the better in terms of forming this list. And so if you do want to join our Patreon, love that. But if you want to just follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook, engage through us that way, that would be also incredible. And you can do that at Last Match Cast on both Twitter and Facebook, and definitely shoot us an email at lastmatchstanding@gmail.com if you have any thoughts on the show, any match suggestions you might have. It's just the best part of this process. So, you know, thank you for that in advance, and for those of you that have already done that. But Paul, you said number 40.
Number 40.
Paul, you said number 40.
I have to agree with the number 40s of the world. I mean, we heard the number multiple times, and the more I look at the list,
and
it just makes so much sense, because if you're talking about the iconic moments that sort of change the game, you have the Liger versus Muta matches, and the Cactus Jack versus Triple H is just, I do feel like they went to a whole nother level at Royal Rumble 2000.
And my reasoning for sticking at number 40 and not going a little bit higher, as Duncan suggested, was because a couple of those matches that are in between 40 and 37.
Toyota Hokuto.
That is a fantastic wrestling match.
Yeah,
And
and it's tough to pass up. I agree.
I don't want to put spectacle over just a barn burner of a match.
I agree, but I also think this spectacle earns its spot at higher on the list than a 50 or a 64.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
So, yeah, I'm pretty solid at 40. Spencer?
We have some barn burner matches that we've ranked spectacles over before, so I'm not going to say that just because Hokuto and Toyota is a barn burner doesn't mean that I'm not considering putting it over. I would put it over 40. I 100% would, mostly because I don't think Royal Rumble 2000 happens without this match.
Oh, absolutely not.
And that's, something that's for better or worse, some of these things that have happened post King of the Ring 1998 are due in large part to the risks that were taken at Hell in a Cell on that night. So I would go over that. I would go over DIY Revival. I am sort of stuck at 38 below Toyota and Hokuto. Like I don't really want to put it over that.
I don't either.
But when I look at numbers 30 through 40, if we're assuming that the original Hell in a Cell is going to be our ceiling for this match, sitting at 30, Bockwinkel Hennig, Flair Michaels, Jericho Michaels from WrestleMania, Angle Undertaker, Kofi Mania. This match is more memorable than all of those. Does that make it better? I don't know. I mean, that's the biggest question that we're asking ourselves here.
Well, we are going to grade it more so on just the memorability, right? Yes, it is more memorable than all of those. I agree. And I think that the fact that it's more memorable than all of those earns its spot on the list and in the range that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. But now we have to get into the details, right?
Well,
the what does happen after the crazy moments.
My favorite parts of this match are not the fall from the top. It's Terry Funk getting chokeslammed out of his shoes. It's Mick Foley, and Paul said it great earlier. Like that leg trying to come up at the end,
trying to kick out.
It's the story that Foley tells in the ring, and Undertaker says Foley was the perfect one to do it, but I think Undertaker was the perfect guy across from Foley too.
Oh, I think so too. If you switch out Undertaker, you don't get this. You don't get these moments of this match.
No, if Triple H throws Cactus Jack off the cell,
in '98, it would have been like, okay, but because it's Undertaker, because at the time, as I said, this match is a double turn. Because Undertaker, the month before, is ensuring that Vince McMahon and the Stooges do not screw Stone Cold out of the WWF title. The next month, he is trying to dethrone Steve Austin to win the belt, and he becomes a satanic cult leader. You don't get to that without him being here and going too far and just being a sadistic bastard. And how do you tell that story? You throw a man off of a cell, and then when the match would be stopped, you chokeslam him through the roof. Then you tombstone him and chokeslam him onto a bed of thumbtacks.
JR said it's the play that defines the game. And as I look through this 30 to 40 part of our list, the other play that defines the game for me is Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair. Because of what it means to both of their careers, but obviously, of course, Ric Flair specifically. So my number's 33, and I realize that is higher than the 40s that you guys have so neatly fallen into. And I'm not saying that I am firm. I obviously can be swayed, but 33 would be where I'm at.
33 is a good number. I like it.
I'm very easily talked into a 38, sliding in above DIY Revival. If you remember, I'm not as big of a fan of that match as the rest of the world. If we're talking about legacy and what that brings to the table, I'd be comfortable sliding it maybe up to 33. Because everything below that is going to have an extremely huge impact and a huge legacy, but it's not going to touch this.
No.
So I get it.
I mean, that's where I am. I realize that it is higher than what literally everyone said that we played on the show so far,
But they all gave us a different perspective
That puts it, you know where 33 puts it, boys? Exactly in the middle of our 66 matches so far.
Which is exactly where I would have it.
What a standard bearer. Does that mean it'll end up at 50?
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, it could. Could not.
I think its final place is going to be between 37 and 52.
Because the fact is, there are some people
still be in the middle
who are going to want it at dead last, and there's a lot of people who are going to want it way higher than 33.
Right.
I'm okay with it being right there in the middle.
It almost feels like, I'm so sorry, Paul. It almost feels like we worked really hard to make a non-decision. 33 feels like a bit non-committal,
made a decision.
But no, I that was sort of really just coincidence. And I'm okay with it. If you guys
we made a decision, and we were able to plug in friends of the show. So I'm happy with it.
Thank you guys so much. Clearly, we do not value your opinions.
Yeah, we do.
We hugely value them.
No, we would not be able to have come to a consensus on 33 without being able to talk through all of the viewpoints.
Yeah,
so I do appreciate
and
that.
I think that the truth is, had our feedback not been 36, 40, 50, like I was feeling really, really tough about ranking it really above 60, going into this moment. It was just a lot after what we talked about on the main episode in terms of what it has to offer. But the feedback absolutely made me more comfortable about where I landed. So
it's all your fault, people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Memorable moment, historic moment for Last Match Standing here as we've done our first mini episode here, episode 66 and a half. And listen, we've got so much more of season 4 to go. So episode 67 right around the corner. Can't wait to get more feedback from you guys as we do that. Definitely be paying attention to our Twitter for future match polls as we sort of get going sort of into nearing the second half of season 4. But for now, Hell in a Cell, the 33rd greatest match of all time. Until episode 67, I'm Spencer.
I'm Paul.
I'm Landon.
And this is Last Match Standing.
They're coming, the biggest names in wrestling history. Saturday, September 25th, Lamar Dixon Expo Center in Gonzales. WWE Hall of Famers Jerry the King Lawler, Diamond Dallas Page, Jake the Snake Roberts, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Bushwhacker Luke, Medusa, Lex Luger, Buff Bagwell, Ron Simmons, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Rockin' Robin, One Man Gang, Ted DiBiase Jr. and more. Live wrestling with Gulf State Pro Wrestling 225. Vendors. Tickets $25 at the door or free at any of our sponsors. See a complete list of free ticket locations and get the VIP Early Access Pass at onescottshop.com. That's onescottshop.com. The legends are back. The Coca-Cola Red Stick Wrestling Con, Saturday, September 25th, Lamar Dixon Expo Center with classic hits 103.3. Oh, yeah.